Marfina Teodoro will introduce our speaker.
Good morning to the Assumption community and the friends of the Assumption. On behalf of Assumption High School Class 63 and College 67, it is my privilege to welcome you today to the recollection entitled Life After Life, Another Way of Looking at Death. Many people are afraid to talk about death, but planning for one's death is a legacy of love that we can leave to our loved ones when we die. To help us with this topic today is someone who has journeyed with many families who have lost their loved ones. Please join me in welcoming Sr Mary Fidelis of the Religious of the Assumption.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marfina and Melly. I like introductions that are short and sweet. And whenever I am asked, what shall I say about you? I tell them, just speak from the heart. And the rest, they will get to know as we move on. I'd like to thank you. Several of you have thanked me even before we begin this day of prayer. But I want to thank you because among the many topics that I've been asked to talk about, the many sessions, this is one of the topics closest to my heart. And understandably so, because this is a very, very important moment in our life. Do you realize that by choosing to spend this time together, recollection, we call it, reflection, others might say, getting together with classmates and with friends, whatever title you give it, you realize this is a form of community pantry. But what we are offering for whoever would want to avail of it are not vegetables, are not eggs, not cooked food, not canned goods. What we are offering in this community pantry is, first of all, our time, the gift of time. Then the gift of our presence. And we are offering one another and whoever will follow us after today, because this is being recorded, we are offering them the gift of our faith. And so, as we remind ourselves that we are in the presence of our God, who is the source of life, who is the source of all love, it is He who gathers us together. I will use a prayer song that most of us are familiar with. And the lyrics, I want you to listen very closely, or sing if you want to sing the lyrics of this song, because much of life after life and how we choose to view this very important passage in our life is based on the lyrics of this song.
I will come to you in the silence. I will lift you from all your fear. You will hear my voice. I claim you as my choice. voice, be still and know I am here.
I am hope for all who are hopeless. I am eyes for all who long to see. In the shadows of the night, I will be your light. Come and rest in me.
Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am strength for all the despairing,
Healing for the ones who dwell in shame.
all the blind will see, the lame will all run free, and all will know my name. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. I am the word that leads all to freedom. I am the peace the world cannot give. I will call your name, embracing all your pain. Stand up now, walk and live. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine. Do not be afraid, I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, I will bring you home. I love you and you are mine.
Thank you for reminding us, dear God, that you have called each one of us by name. You have redeemed us, and you remind us in so many ways that we are yours and that you love us. Thank you for the gift of faith that enables us to believe. Our Mother Foundress St. Marie Eugenie tells us what should characterize anyone connected to the Assumption. And all of us. You don't need to be an Assumption graduate. You don't need to be a faculty member. You don't need to have sent a child to an Assumption school. All of us are friends of the Assumption. And in that sense, you are all of the Assumption. And so what our foundress, St. Marie Eugenie, tells us applies to you as well, to all of us. And she tells us what should characterize anyone connected to the Assumption. It's not the handwriting. I smile when I see younger students, daughters of our alumni, who tell us, why don't you have penmanship classes anymore to teach us Assumption writing? I tell them, there's no such thing as Assumption writing. The pointed way of writing, which some people refer to as Assumption handwriting, is French penmanship. It's not Assumption writing. It's just that our mothers, our first mothers were French, and therefore they wrote the French way. So Marie Eugenie tells us what should characterize anyone connected to the Assumption is first of all the gift of faith. And she says faith gives us another pair of eyes. Faith enables us to look and to see as God sees, as Jesus sees. And that should be the tatak Assumptionista. Don't worry about handwriting. Don't worry about not being able to eat Assumption tarts anymore. Don't worry that your generation no longer has a graduation ring or the gala uniform or this or that. That's not what makes someone truly of the Assumption. And so it is this gift of faith that enables us to look at every moment in our life from a different perspective. The title of our recollection today is Life After Life. There is a book with that title, and it's written by Dr. Raymond Moody. But I did not think of him when I suggested this title. But the phrase life after life came to me many, many years ago when I was looking through some books in a book sale outlet. And I saw this thin book, and it was the diary of a priest. So I was very interested. I picked that book and I scanned through the pages. And it was written by an American priest who was assigned to a ghetto in the States, where all the people who lived there were HIV, AIDS victims, if you want to call them. And so the archdiocese that this priest belonged to thought of assigning a priest to take care of the spiritual needs of the people who lived in that area. And so this little book was the diary of this priest assigned to take care of HIV patients. And then one day, well, in the middle of the book, he makes this revelation. Today, I am one of you. because he had been diagnosed as being an HIV victim himself. And his sickness took him very, very rapidly. During the last few months of his life, a reporter asked if he could interview him, and Father said yes. And so the usual questions were asked. And one of the questions that this reporter asked Father was, "So Father, you know that your days are counted. How do you feel about your coming death? Can you share with us some of your reflections? Are you afraid? You have prepared so many people for their deaths, and soon it will be your turn." And Father answered, "I am not afraid, and I am not thinking of life after death. I am thinking and looking forward to life after life." I was so touched by that answer. And well, the last pages of the book was written by one of his confreres, and then we find out that Father had passed on. "I am not afraid of death. I look forward excitedly," he said, "to life after life." So dear sisters and brothers, for those of you who prayed, and I know, at least I'm sure of one of you with us here who told me, "I will be with you, but I will start praying now because I'm very afraid of death. But I feel I would like to listen to your recollection." It's all a matter of perspective or outlook. And dear sisters and brothers, I have a niece. I think she's with us, or she will be joining us later. When she was about 5 or 6 years old, I told her, I said, "Martha, can you memorize a sentence, just one sentence? And then you can share it with your teachers, because I think some of your teachers don't know this sentence." She was 5 or 6 years old at that time. All right, she said, "Yes, I can memorize." All right, so I told her, "Listen, it is all in my mind. It is all in my mind." And so she repeated very slowly, "It is all in my mind." And then as she grew more and more comfortable with that sentence, "It is all in my mind," she added a second sentence, and she said, "It is all in your mind. It is all in your mind." And then later on, when there would be friends, family friends, or I suppose companions in school, this little, she was young, she was about 6 years old at that time, she added, actions. And then whenever someone would complain about something, she would repeat that sentence, "It is all in your mind." And then she would say, "But it is also in my mind. I can think of it differently." And so, my dear sisters, it is all in my mind, and it is all in your mind. We ask for the grace to have the mind of Christ, to put on the mind of Christ. And everything we think of, everything we reflect upon, will hopefully become more and more like the mind of Christ. As we go along, I'd like to invite you to just jot down whatever strikes you. No need to take notes, because later on those who would want to listen to this again would be able to avail of the recording. But for now, whenever a word or words touch you, just jot it down, because that might lead you to further reflection and prayer. So I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to just remember, so far, since we began, what has struck you. Jot it down or write it in your cell phone. All right, are we on the same page? Can you see them? Can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet,
Yes,
sister.
okay. Anything?
No, sister.
No?
No.
Now let's see. But Enid is nodding her head. She can see it.
You need to click on the presentation, sister.
No, this is already. You still don't see it? Bianca, can you help me?
It's not showing, sister.
Okay. Let's see.
Now that it's open, sister, the presentation, now you can share screen. Click share screen.
Okay.
There.
Now?
It's good. Yes, sister. We see it.
Life after life, or another way of looking at death. We grew up in the university belt in the Sampaloc area. Sister Bernie will remember this, because Sister Bernie's family lived about 10 minutes walk away from where we lived. And for us as children, it was always a treat to visit Abuelita's home. Abuelita was my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother. And she lived 5 minutes walk away from our home. Abuelita had many roses, and she loved taking care of her potted roses. That was one of my memories of my abuelita. When I was about 10 years old, it was one of those weeks when Mama and Papa, my mother and my father, were abroad. They had gone abroad, and so we were at home with my other grandmother and our kasambahay. And our joy whenever my parents were away was to be able to sleep on the floor instead of on our beds. So we had a very big banig and a very big mosquitero. And at that time, I'm the eldest in the family, and there was Binky after me, the eldest of our brothers, and there was Miguel. So 3 out of the 6 that we are in the family. And we would be very happy and sleep on the floor together, you know, because we were not allowed to do that when my parents were around. So at that time, I must have been about 10 years old, 11 years old. I don't know whether it was a dream, whether I was having a vision, but what I remember very, very clearly was Abuelita was outside our kulambo, our mosquitero, our mosquito net, very, very bright. And she called me and she told me, "Come with me." And I saw behind her, the setting that she was in was her garden of roses. And so she told me, "Come with me and I will show you many more flowers, beautiful flowers." And I remember telling her, can you just wait? I will look for Mama. I want her to also see your flowers. And then she says, no, she says, I am inviting you. Mama cannot come with us yet. And there was a short argument, and I was telling her, but I want Mama to come with me. I don't want to leave her behind. And Abuelita used to have a very beautiful smile. She just smiled, and then she told me, "Okay, Iha, if that's the way you want it, then I'll have to come back for you another day, because only you can join me this time." After a few moments, I woke up. I guess I woke up, and I looked for Abuelita. She was nowhere around. In those days, I didn't know anything about what happens after death. But that experience of my Abuelita and her inviting me to join her, and when I insisted that I also wanted Mama to come with me, and she told me, "No, Iya, Mama cannot come yet, but if you want, I can show you the garden," has remained with me. Some of you know Sister Carol, especially Marisa. Sister Carolina Nieva. She and I entered religious life on the same day, together, and all our ceremonies were together. Sister Carol passed on from cancer in her mid-50s from San Lorenzo. She and I used to have very interesting conversations, and we would talk about topics that others would consider crazy, that's not true, etc. But we enjoyed talking about the spiritual world and the paranormal. And Carol and I made a deal, but it was a happy deal. And we told one another, whoever goes first will find a way of telling the one still here on earth that death does not separate us, that death does not put that distance that many of us think it does. That was our happy deal. We didn't know at that time that she would go ahead of me. The day after Carol passed on in July 5th, and I know that well because it was the day before my brother Ricky's birthday. The day after she passed on, my cell phone, I was assigned here to Iloilo. My cell phone rang, but it was not the tone that I had set for any of the calls. I put it off. When I checked who the call was from, there were some symbols. They were not letters, they were symbols. And as far as I was concerned, I couldn't make it out. You know? So I put my phone off. The ringing of my cell phone went on. It would ring sometimes twice a day. And so I remembered the happy deal that I had made with Carol. And I asked her, Carol, is this you now keeping your end of the deal? And believe it or not, dear sisters and brothers, my cell phone kept ringing using that particular ringing tone for a whole year. I tried putting it in silent mode. I even would turn off my cell phone and the ringing tone would still ring. So my sisters in community told me, you better bring your phone to Nokia or bring it to Globe. Ask them to check it. There's something wrong with your cell phone. I told them, I know what it's all about. This is not Nokia or Globe. This is Carol. And I could afford to tell my sisters about it because they knew Carol. Anyway, I decided to go to Globe, showed them my telephone. The technician looked at it and said, Sister, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with your cell phone. But I said, why does it ring? You know, even when it's in off. So he told me, Sister, why don't you go to Nokia because it might be connected to the telephone branch. So I went to the Nokia service center here in Iloilo. And the man told me, that's strange, Sister. It's the first time that I hear, you know, about this problem. And I told him, but I can tell you what it's about, but you might think I'm crazy. So I told him about Carol and the deal we had made. Sister, let's see. Can we change your ringing tone? He tried everything and said, all right, Sister, that's the best I can do. I went home. That was about the 4th month that my cell phone had been ringing. Well, believe it or not, it continued ringing for a whole year. And sometimes it would ring when sisters would be studying, our young sisters would be studying. So I would tell them, I would tell Carol, you know, stop ringing because you are disturbing others. And that would be it. Her presence was very, very real to me. After 1 year, I guess she figured, no, that's enough assurance from my end. A good number of you know my brother Miguel. Miguel passed on in 2007. He worked with the Philippine Airlines, his only employer from the first day he worked until he passed on. Miguel and I used to enjoy talking about the spirit world, and were sure that neither one would think we were crazy. So in one of our conversations, I suggested the same deal with him, and I told him, Mig, whoever goes first between the two of us will find a way of keeping in touch and letting the other person know that we are closer to one another after we pass on from this earthly life than most people believe. Meg passed on very, very quickly and suddenly. I was here assigned to Iloilo. I received a phone call to tell me that he had a stroke and that he had passed on. I took the last plane out of Iloilo that day, went straight to the morgue of Makati Med. All right. And I told Mig, okay, you made it, Mig. Remember what we talked about. Then we had the wake, and up to the present day, how does Mig let me know that death does not separate us, but that we are closer to one another because no more bound, no longer limited by our physical body. He uses his name. His name is Miguel. So soon after we laid his remains to rest, once a day, and then it became less often, he would use his name to let me know that he was with me. I would be introduced to someone, and the friend introducing the second person would say, Sister, I want you to meet my boyfriend. I want you to meet my husband. I want you to meet my friend. And the name would either be, my friend's name is Mike, or Miguel, or Lito. That's short sister for Miguelito. Then I would be traveling, and I would look out of the window, and I would see a turo-turo or a sari-sari store, and the name above it would be Michael or Mike. Or I might be waiting for the pedestrian light, the traffic light to change for me to be able to cross the street, and a taxi would pass in front of me, and the name of the taxi would be Michael or Mike. So many experiences where Meg would let me know that he was with me, but his way was not the cell phone, his way was using his name. It continues even today. What I'm sharing with you, dear sisters and brothers, is born from my own personal spiritual experience, and therefore rooted in faith. I chose the name Fidelis. Fidelis is Latin for faithful. And although several friends and sisters remember to greet me every April 24th, that's the feast of St. Fidelis of Sigmaringen, I tell them, well, I say thank you for praying for me, but I did not choose the name Fidelis because of St. Fidelis. My Fidelis is in honor of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the faithful love of Jesus. In the Assumption, when we pronounce our first vows, we choose a mystery. A mystery is a part of the life either of Jesus or of Our Lady that we feel specially called to live. So some choose the mystery of the Eucharist, Sister so-and-so of the Eucharist, or Sister so-and-so of Mary, or of Jesus and Mary. My mystery is the Word made flesh. Jesus, as the Word of the Father, become flesh. And when we pronounce our final vows, we choose a word or a motto which is engraved inside our ring. And my motto or my word is Credo Domine. I believe, Lord. Why do I share this with you? I believe so deeply with all my heart and soul that the Word of God, Jesus, speaks, and His Word is true. And so my motto, I believe, Lord, is, Lord, I'm so sure of your love, and I know that whatever you reveal to us is true, and you will never tell us joke lang. I believe our God when He tells us through the prophet Isaiah, I have called you by name, and you are mine, and I love you. And He tells you the same thing, dear brothers and sisters. I have called you, each one of you, by name. And in Jewish tradition, it was the father who would give the name to the child. That was the prerogative of the father. And it signified a very special link between the father and the child, the daughter or the son. And rightly so, God tells us, you are mine, and I love you. I believe this with all my heart. And only Jesus can say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. When we examine who our sources of information are, other than Jesus Christ, other than God, can your source also tell you, I am the way, the truth, and the life? There are so many voices and so many sources that surround us. Just 2 or 3 days ago, I was so excited about the possibility of winning a cell phone, not for myself, but because I was already thinking of someone I wanted to give that cell phone to. And so when I received from a priest friend that text saying this is a survey, etc., etc., you know it. I passed it to about 4 or 5 of you, only to be told, stop sending that, stop forwarding it because it's fake, it's not true. But when Jesus speaks, it's not fake. It's not a hoax. It is truth. One of my favorite authors is Father Teilhard de Chardin. And many of you who have made retreats or other sessions with me know that this is one of my favorite passages from his writings. Father Teilhard tells us, we are not human beings on a spiritual journey, but rather spiritual beings on a human journey. Again, we are not human beings. Some of us are fond of saying, sapagkat ako'y tao lamang. What can you expect? I'm only human. So Padre de Chardin tells us, we are not human beings that have a spiritual life, but rather we are spiritual beings on a human journey. Sometimes when the young, are scared and then they ask that question, are there spirits here? They used to ask this of some of our older houses. They say that may mga multo dito. I tell them, but why are you afraid of spirits? You're a spirit yourself. We are spiritual beings. Our real identity is a spiritual being who for now is on a human journey. Our human journey begins when we are conceived in our mother's womb and ends when we take our final breath. The hospital machines call it the flat line. When we take our last breath on this physical dimension called Earth. I call it our first day in school, in the school of life. The moment we are conceived is our enrollment in kindergarten. And our schooling begins then. And the flat line, I call it our final graduation or homecoming. This past month has been graduation month for us, or moving up. I like to reflect on death as our final graduation. All the previous graduations, from moving up in primary school, moving on from kindergarten, etc., all the so-called graduations, up to graduation from our training as professionals, they are all rehearsals for our final graduation. And the other way I like to think of death is our homecoming. Finally, going home. We wait in the dawn until your light is within us. Lord, let your deep joy shine out from our eyes. Grant that your wisdom will inspire us with brightness. Let the splendor of your glory glow out through our actions. Set us ablaze with your love. Change us, and we shall be changed. Lord, fill us with the light of life. For those of you who are in school or those who have recently attended a graduation ceremony, the school directress or director at one moment presents the candidates for graduation, whether to the president of the institution or to the representative of the Department of Education. And the formula used is, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for graduation for school year 2020-2021. They have successfully completed all the requirements for the senior high school course prescribed by the Department of Education and Assumption, Iloilo. And the loudest applause after the head or the representative accepts and says, I have the honor, by virtue of the power vested in me, to declare you graduates, for example, of the senior high school course, Assumption, Iloilo. The loudest applause is usually from the graduates' families. And the parents sigh with relief. We have managed to see our child through to whatever level he or she is graduating from. I like to think of death, our final graduation, in a similar way. And I would put it this way: mission accomplished, arrived safe and sound at his or her life destination on Saturday, 29th of May, 2021. For isn't that what passing on, or the transition, this moment called dying or death, isn't that what it's all about? From God's point of view, I have finished the homework He has given me. The work, the assignment entrusted to my care. And so, like a good steward, given an account, mission accomplished. And our God, who tells us, you are mine, assures family and friends and all of us, your loved one has arrived safe and sound at his life destination today. let's give ourselves a few moments. We'll give you a 15-minute break. It's good to stand up and stretch your legs. Also to rest your eyes and look somewhere else. For those who don't need to go anywhere, you can just scribble or go back to what touched you. And I will resume in 15 minutes time.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
It is for you alone, oh my God, that I am here. You are the all of my life. My thoughts, my work, my affection are all for you. You are the all of my life. And although I can't always be at your feet, my life must be in a way a constant prayer. Prayer must be the soul of my life. May each one of my thoughts, of my occupations be directed towards the fullness with which I want to belong to you. It is for you alone, oh my God, that I am here. You are the all of my life. My thoughts, my work, my affection are all for you. You are the all of my life. And although I can't always be at your feet, my life must be in a way a constant prayer. Prayer must be the soul of my life. May each one of my thoughts, of my occupations be directed towards the fullness with which I want to belong to you. It is for you alone, oh my God, that I am here. You are the all of my life.
Let's resume now. I have read some of your messages. I'm touched. I know God is working within us and among us. And remember what little Martha, by the way, now I think she's 27 years old. You know, and she remembers the line that I made her memorize when she must have been about six or 7 years old. It's all in my mind. And then she added, it's all in your mind. One of the things deeply embedded in our minds is that death separates us. And I guess that's why we grieve. That's why the pain of being separated from our loved one or once loved ones. But it's good in moments like these to go back and to ask ourselves, who said so? Who said so? Who said that? And to ask, what does God tell us? What does Jesus tell us? I remember in one of the sessions, and the companions are here with us this morning, I was told, Sister, you know, so-and-so is still mourning the death of her husband. So just be aware of that when you give your inputs. avoid anything that will make her cry. No. Okay, so, and to our surprise, she was one of those who volunteered to share first when I asked them. So we haven't seen each other for a little over a year. So how are you now? And she was the first one who said, I think I'm improving. I miss my husband very, very much, but I'm becoming better each day. She says now, and it must have been about 4 or 5 months after her husband passed on. She said, now I don't cry as often and as long as before. And then what I do is every morning after breakfast, I go to the, what do you call this? You call it the ossuary? Where we deposit the urns, where they are not buried, the interment. No? And she says, so I stay there, I talk to my husband, and I update him about what has happened since yesterday. I chat with him. And then after about 45 minutes or an hour, I tell him, sige ha, diyan ka na muna. Babalik ako bukas. Don't worry, I will come back tomorrow. Tumahimik ka lang dyan at saka ipagdasal mo na lang ako, no? Just pray for me. But I'm coming back. I'm okay. I know you're praying for me. All right. So, and then she says, then I go, I do my marketing or my grocery. This was pre-COVID times, okay? Then she says, so mother, don't you think I'm improving? I told her, yeah, except for one thing, why do you insist in keeping your husband there in the, where his urn is? Your husband wants to be with you. He wants to go with you wherever you go. So don't tell him, diyan ka muna, tumahimik ka na dyan, no? No, you tell him, okay, let's go now. Now, the next number in the program is we are going to the bank or we're going to the grocery, no? But there are many thoughts that were planted in our minds when we were babies and children, and until now, they're still there. And it's these thoughts that have very, very deep roots that make it difficult for us to move on and to expand and to open ourselves to other ways of looking at life. You know? All right. Let's see. Let's move on. Huh? We will use a prayer song at this point, and it's entitled, With You by My Side. Let's allow the words to speak to us.
When I'm feeling all alone and I'm far away from home, God, I need you to hear me. When my friends all turn away, then I ache to hear you say that you are with me through it all. You are the light, you're the song that I'm singing. Whom should I fear when you are with me? For you are my God, and with you there is nothing I can't do. With you by my side. keep you in my sight, to walk with me and be my strength. God, I know your plan for me, to help all those in need. To you alone I give my life. You are the light that I'm singing. Should I fear when you are with me? For you are my God, and with you there is nothing I can do. With you by my side, with you by my side, with you by my side, Lord, I need you by my side, with you by my side, with you by my side. You are the light, you're the song that I'm singing.
Are you aware that God tries in so many ways? Or we might, humanly speaking, we might say God exhausts his divine mind to find ways and means of reminding us and trying to convince us. I am with you always. Like my friend who would tell the ashes of her husband, diyan ka muna, babalik ako bukas. But remember what Father Teilhard de Chardin says. We are not human beings on a spiritual journey. The spiritual journey there would mean with a spiritual life. We are not human beings with a spiritual life, but rather we are spiritual beings on a human journey. And so this human journey is where our physical body comes in. On this earthly plane, because it's a physical world, and we need our physical bodies. And God himself took flesh in Jesus to help us understand this message. I am with you always. And I like to spell always, well, the usual way, ALWAYS, but also ALL-ways. I am with you in every way and in all ways. All right, we shall move on. And the question that's probably in your mind now is, how do we make the shift from the way we were taught about death? That it's a separation, that we're not sure where we're going, whether our loved ones are with God, etc., etc. All these were planted in our minds, in our consciousness. I told you earlier that it helps me to think of this passage from our earthly life to the next level of fuller life as a final graduation or a homecoming. So let's allow the slides now to speak to us. Am I getting through to you? No, I don't think so. No.
No,
Um,
sister.
no.
Sister, you want me to share it?
Yes,
Or
please. Yes, please. Are we on?
yes, sister. You don't see it, sister.
Um, no, I see my own, but it's okay. If the others can see it,
Yes, but
oh, okay.
On speaker view, sister. Are you on speaker view?
Can you hear me?
yes.
I think so. Okay, let's see. I'll continue, and you just tell me if you're not seeing it. So, how do we make the shift, or how do we move towards this other way of looking at dying and death? Dear, I'm not sure. Are you on the second slide also? Because mine is not moving. Okay. Are we okay now?
Yes, sister. It's
Are we
what
screen sharing? We are on the screen.
Yes, sister. But you cannot. You'll have to tell me to go to next screen, next slide when you want to.
Okay. Can't I do it? Let's see. Okay. What you see the slide? What's that all about?
Yes, sister.
Okay. Okay. The next one.
Next slide. Yeah.
All right. So what is this shift? What is this change all about? It's an offer. You have taken it. The mere fact that you signed up, and not only signed up, that you're here with us. The screen says there are 199 of us. No? Each one of us has said yes to put aside this moment, all right, in order to open ourselves to grace. It's an offer to all who realize that they have arrived either at midlife or beyond midlife. Although it's possible that we have 2 or 3 younger ones who are not yet in their midlife. No? Okay. Next. And because we have arrived at this moment in our lives, we wish to consciously prepare. The word consciously is very important. To consciously prepare through prayer, through conscious reflection, by reviewing, and meaningful conversations. You know? Later on, when we have our question and answer, that would be an example of entering into meaningful conversation, which hopefully will not end online, but will continue, no? Okay. Meaningful conversation for, next please, our final graduation. So it's a conscious decision. And that's what we're doing. This is a concrete example of a conscious decision to help ourselves to shift in terms of outlook. Next, please. there are so many things that we try to memorize, to learn, to understand. But at the end of our earthly life, basically there are three important questions. We first heard it when we were in school, possibly when we were in primary school, then intermediate school, then high school, college, probably one or the other covered an aspect, one or more of these questions in their thesis or their doctoral dissertation. And these three basic questions are, who am I? Why am I here on earth? And how shall I get to my destination? These are the three most important questions. Who am I? Why am I here? So how shall I get to my final destination? Next. When we prepare for exams, we usually check notes with our classmates, or there are review booklets. So I ask you, do you have the updated edition of the answer sheet? The answer sheet to those three questions. Is your answer sheet updated? Or is it the same answer sheet as when you first went to school? Check the edition. Huh? Okay, next. Who am I? Why am I here? How shall I get to my destination? Next. Next one, please. And as I asked you earlier, who is your source? So the answers to those questions, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Or where is my destination? The answers that you carry within you are according to whom? Or simply put, who said so or who told you so? Okay, next. Who is your coach? Who is your mentor? As far as these questions, these three basic questions are concerned. Next. We were made to write essays, themes when we were in school about who am I. There are so many songs, Sino Ako, etc. And these are all attempts to answer that first basic question. Who am I? There's a beautiful Hasidic tale, Jewish tale, that says during the 9 months that a baby is in his or her mother's womb, there is an ongoing conversation between the Creator and the baby. And one by one, God reveals to the baby the mysteries of creation. God unfolds the secrets of the universe during the 9 months that a baby is in a mother's womb. And the last revelation that God makes to the child just before the baby is born or comes out of his mother's womb is the answer to this question, who am I? So we were all given the correct answer. But then birth was such a trauma. My brother, Sal Jr. Binky, who's with us this morning, says, we cry a lot during wakes and when a loved one passes on. But I haven't heard of many people who cry when a baby is born, except perhaps tears of joy that the baby is alive, the baby is normal, but not tears of sorrow. But I was struck when many, many years ago, my brother said, you realize birth is also traumatic, just as traumatic as death. And I understand it in this context. God told each one of us who we truly are. But the trauma of birth and entering into another environment was so great that we forgot the correct answer. Senior moments are not only for those who are 60 years and beyond. This is an example of a senior moment when we forgot what God told us. So, according to God, who am I and who are you? Next one, please. That beautiful passage from Isaiah. I have called you by name, you are mine. We began with that song at the beginning of our morning, and the song reminds us that God called each one of us by name, and we belong to Him. But what happened soon after we were born, or soon after we came out of our mother's womb, not because of ill will, not because our parents or significant adults wanted to make us suffer later on, but because they thought that was what they were supposed to teach us. Soon after a baby comes out of the mother's womb, in so many ways, these thoughts are implanted in the child's consciousness. You are what you have. It may not be said that way, but the idea is the more you have, then the better off you are. And that's why we have to teach from the little ones from the very start to share, to give, because there is that natural tendency to keep for oneself. For me, I want everything. It's based on that miseducation or misinformation that you are what you have. And if you have very little, then you are poor. And who wants to be friends with a poor person? The second fallacy that is implanted deeply in many of us is that we are what we do. We are what we do. And therefore, parents even today tell their children, study hard, study well, so that then you graduate successfully from college, and then you will land a good job. Many will want to have you in their company, etc. But if you don't do well in school, who will want you? You will just end up being a street sweeper, or a yaya, or a jeepney driver, or a tricycle driver. And it's because of these thoughts that children develop the idea that being a tricycle driver, being a yaya, being an elevator man or woman is low, and then they are taught, you see, if they had studied better and if they had better grades, they would be doing something more than this. So you are what you have, you are what you do. The third fallacy is you are what people say about you. I guess that's the reason why we're so sensitive. Many of us react quickly when reports reach us. So-and-so is saying this about you. Aya? Sino siya? Ano bang akala niya sa kanyang sarili? And then we get upset because they are saying this or that of me, and it doesn't match what I think of myself. And the last fallacy, which I feel is the most serious fallacy, is that God and we are separated. And we're taught, heaven is up there and we are down here on earth. All right? And there's that big gap. But if we behave ourselves, then at the end of our lives, then we go to heaven and we will be with God. This is a fallacy. And later on for the question and answer, you will probably ask me, or I will remind me to answer that question. All right. God cannot be separated from us. So it's because of these seeds of misinformation that we grow up and have all kinds of ideas about who I am, and we get upset. How can you say that about me? How dare you, etc., etc. The false idea that I am what I have, I am what I do, I am what other people say about me. And then so many of our moments of sadness or depression, you might say, stems from the idea that God is far away from me. And that's why the song that we played at the start of the second half, when those moments come, remind me that you are with me. Next, please. Second basic question, why am I here on earth? And sometimes when we go through dark moments, we are tempted to say, maybe it would have been better if I had never been born. And we blame our mothers and our fathers. Why did you, give birth to me, etc., etc. So what is God's answer to that question? Why am I here? Next, please. He tells us in John 13, the second verse of verse 34, as I have loved you, so must your love be for each other. Why am I here? To learn more and more how to love as God loves me, as Jesus loves me. So life has rightly been described as the school of love. And during this earthly journey, that's what you and I are supposed to be learning. How to move from an egocentric way of perceiving life to Jesus' way. Next. The new commandment that Jesus gives us is love one another as I have loved you. What is new is the second part, as I have loved you. Because the love love God with all your heart and soul, etc., and love your neighbor as yourself. And that was taught in the Old Testament. But when Jesus tells us, I give you a new commandment, the newness is in the second half of the verse. Love one another as I have loved you. That's the new commandment. And we ask ourselves, how does Jesus love us? Next, please. We are loved by God, by Jesus, without condition, without limitation, and without any need. Let's just take a look at those three descriptions of how God loves us. Without condition. That's why you see in the Old Testament, in many of the books and verses of the Old Testament, God tells his people, you are my people, I am your God, you are my people. But there is an if. Oh, it's not God who pronounced those words, but this was the perception. This was how our Old Testament brothers and sisters understood God. If you obey my commandments, if you do what I tell you to do. But those are conditions. That's why Jesus came to earth, became one of us, to reveal to us who God really is. And Jesus tells us, you want to know who the Father is? Look at me, listen to me. Whoever sees me sees the Father. Whoever listens to my words listens to the Father. And so, how does Jesus love us? Without condition. That's why, when I hear people say, maybe all this is happening to me, God is punishing me because I did not keep my promise to him, or etc., etc. If I have the time and the chance, I explain to them, that's not the God of Jesus Christ. That is your own making of God. God will love you, whether you pray or don't pray, whether you obey him or you don't obey him. God will continue loving you. Without limitation. God loves us without limitation. He will never tell us, I'm tired, I've been trying to reveal, the path to you for the past 50 years. You're already approaching senior citizenship, and until now you don't get my point. No more. Okay, do it your own way. No, that's not God's way. Because God's love is without condition. Without limitation. Walang hangganan. It does not reach a ceiling. Except if we put a ceiling to God's love. And finally, God loves us without need. He doesn't need anything to love us. We cannot bribe God. Sometimes we say, okay, I'll go to Mass every day, online. All right. God, just do this for me, please. God will continue to love you. God will continue to bless you. He doesn't need extra masses. And if we were to ask God, why me? Why did you choose me? I'm so blessed, etc., etc. God will probably answer, because I love you. No, God, listen, can you listen? closely, I'm asking you, why me? Well, there are other people who are better than I am, and God will, I can probably say, you listen to me because I love you. Love is its own reason. It doesn't need to have any other reason. But very often, when we think we love, there are conditions, there are limitations, and then it's coming from our own need. God does not need any reason to love, and He will continue repeating until it sinks, because I love you. That's it. Next, please. Is that the way you love at this stage of your life? Many of us are senior citizens, others are approaching senior citizenship. Others might be in their 70s and beyond. Have you learned what Jesus has been trying to teach us since kindergarten? Love as I have loved you. And when we ask, how, Lord? The way Jesus loves you, without condition, without limitation, without need. Next, please. And the third question, how shall I get to my destination? All right, if I've been enlightened as to who I am, as to why I am here, to learn more and more how to love as God loves me. All right, the third basic question is, how shall I get to my destination? How shall I reach my final graduation moment? Next. Who said that dogs and cats can't be friends? Look at these two. And they're looking at one direction. And the one direction is, they're reminding us to note down Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 and the following, because that is God's answer to the question, how will you get to your destination? Matthew 25, 31 and the following verses. Next. What is that passage? It's the long account, but it ends with, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. Or another version, whatever you do or do not do to one of the last, the least, the lost of these, my brothers and sisters, you either did it to me or you did not do it to me. Remember, we are now looking at the answers to the three basic questions. And this is Jesus' answer to, how shall I reach my destination? Whatever you do, even to the least, to the lowest, to the last of my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. Next. Now, watch out for this popular trap. I don't mention it here, but one of our common pitfalls is expressed in that sentence, sapagkat ako'y tao lamang. Oh, delete that from your vocabulary, because it's a trap, sapagkat ako'y tao lamang. And then I often ask them, why you have plans of becoming something else? No. But if you believe in Jesus Christ, if you believe in the redemption, the price that Jesus paid for each one of us, we will not say anymore, tao lamang, because this tao is a redeemed tao. It's a tao that has been saved by the blood of Christ. Christ paid the price for our debt. So, but that's not one of the traps that I will talk about. Okay, next. Our Filipino words come in handy at this point when we speak of beware of common traps. And what are the two words in Filipino that I'd like to look at here? Next, please. We have two words, and both of these words in Filipino are translated into the English word love. But there is a whole world of difference in the meaning of these two Filipino words. Next, please. The two words are, I must have skipped a slide, are pagmamahal and pag-ibig. All right? Both are translated as love. Mahal kita, minamahal kita, iniibig kita. But there's a very important difference in Filipino. Pagmamahal sets requirements, has expectations, gets disappointed, operates on a case-to-case basis, grows weary, withdraws, and ends. All right, when some people, especially the younger generation, say there's no such thing as a life commitment, because you can always change your mind. Yep, we can always change our mind. And that's why we hear of, yes, I'm being reminded, they tell us walang forever. Yes, in the pagmamahal vocabulary, walang forever. Because wherever we have expectations or we require certain things of one another, disappointment will creep in sooner or later, right? And we will say, tama na. I think 50 years of being faithful are enough, no? Well, I also am entitled to being happy, etc. So love ends. That's the pagmamahal. May hangganan. All right, next, please. But pag-ibig, which is also translated as love, is forever. Pag-ibig in Filipino is forever. But not many people say that to one another, no? Iniibig kita. How do I, where am I coming from? Maybe the shortest and the most accurate description, because we cannot define God, but description of God would be, God is love. When we look for the translation in Filipino of God is love, it's not ang Diyos ay pagmamahal. Ang Diyos ay pag-ibig. Alright? And this is where I'm coming from. Ang Diyos ay pag-ibig. Next. Pag-ibig is divine love. As I have loved you. How have I loved you? Without condition, without limitation, and without any need. All right, next. I wonder what they're looking at. Huh? Let's look at the next slide to see what they're looking at. And pag-ibig, or love as we are loved by God, is free. There's no price tag. It doesn't say, as long as you love me in return, as long as you obey what I want you to do, as long as you sacrifice. No price tag, no taxes. It is completely free. Next. Next slide, please. For those who knew my mother, that's a picture of my mother. Love is that which is free. For freedom is the essence of what God is. And love is God expressed. Love is God expressed. The shortest and perhaps most accurate description of God, God is love, and God expresses His love. It's not secret. I smile whenever we ask one another, so tell me, what ingredients did you put into this dish? It's so yummy. Secret. With God, no secrets. And Jesus could say very, very plainly, whatever the Father has revealed to me, I have revealed to you. I have told you everything that my Father has told me. Love is God expressed. Next. All right. My brothers and I, after Papa, Mama, and my brother Mig passed on, all right, we introduced a shift in our family celebrations. We still remember our parents and our brother on their earthly birthday. That's when they began kindergarten. Remember? When they were born on this earth. But we have begun celebrating the e-birthday. So we remind one another. All right? Tomorrow is going to be the e-birthday of Papa, or in 2 days' time, Mama's e-birthday. Yes? Or Miguel's e-birthday. And by e-birthday, it's not connected to the internet. It's eternal birthday. And the other birthday we call our earth birthday. All right, so how do we go about preparing our celebration for our e-birthday? Next, please. We have a homework, but this homework is take-home homework. And I am not going to check up on you. You ask somebody to check up on you or to remind you. There are two kinds of wills. One is the legal will, which is after you pass on, after you graduate to fuller life. All right, who would you like your the ancestral home to go to among the children? Or this is when you assign distribution of gifts. but it will take effect after you pass on. But a living will is different. I guess that's why it's called living. I will not talk about the other kind of will, the one about your properties, etc., because you settle that with your lawyer. No? But I will talk to you a little bit about writing our living will, because you write it and you sign it now while you're alive. That's why it's called living. Okay, and there are three slides that I will use for this. Next one, please. A living will is a legal document, also known as an advance health care directive, that details how you want to be cared for if something unexpectedly impacts your health and you wind up on life support. What does life support means? It's the machines keeping you alive, breathing for you, all right, pumping blood for you. A living will also forces you to answer those unthinkable questions, such as whether or not you want doctors to do everything they can to keep you alive. Answers questions such as, do you want the doctors to do everything they can to keep you alive, even if the outlook is hopeless? Or whether you want to give them permission to let you go if you are incapacitated. By incapacitated here means we go back to the top. All right, you're on life support. And the moment these machines are disconnected, your body functions will stop and you will pass on. Okay, so that's the meaning of a living will. So these questions would be answered by you in writing. Okay, next. A DNI. So one question that a living will answers is, do you want to be intubated? DNI means do not intubate. It's an order signed by you and the doctors will honor it, means that chest compressions and cardiac drugs may be used, but no breathing tube will be placed. The intubation is the tube that's inserted to help you breathe. No? And an AND, or allow natural death order, is a term used at some hospitals as an alternative to the traditional DNR order. Because if the patient is not intubated, then natural death will take its course. So, a very important item on your living will would be, would you want to be intubated, or DNI, do not intubate. Next. And the other is a DNR order, do not resuscitate order. What is that? It's a medical order written by a doctor if the patient asks for it, or better still, if the patient herself or himself has it written down and a copy is given to the doctor. It instructs healthcare providers not to do cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, if a patient's breathing stops or if the patient's heart stops beating. We have heard about CPR, and I'm sure some of you with us this morning know how to do CPR. So, do not resuscitate, DNR, expresses your will, if that is your will, not to be resuscitated once your breathing stops or your heart stops beating. These two questions, DNI and DNR, all right, are very, very important, because if we do not put it down in writing, all right, it's our family members who are keeping watch with us who will have to make that difficult decision. And there's always that, doubt. Is this what she would want? Is this what he would want, etc. But if you put it down in writing, it's clear. They will just bring it out, and usually a copy is given to the doctor or to a doctor friend, all right? And the other copy is to the family. You just follow what this family member or what this friend said or says he or she wants. So this is very important, and this is really an act of charity for those who are not yet graduating. Think of it in terms of our ordinary graduation from school. Like here, we still have some diplomas and some awards that are still awaiting collection. Why? Because the school fees have not all been settled. May atraso, all right? And so, when it comes to our final graduation, we try to make it as easy and as peaceful as possible for those who are accompanying us, who are keeping watch, who are praying by our bedside, so that they do not have the burden of having to figure out, what the doctors will ask, no? If you do not want to be resuscitated and you do not want to be intubated, that's when you have to put it down into writing. But if nothing is put down into writing, the doctors will do everything they can. And so if there's no order, they will go ahead, they will intubate, and they will try to resuscitate, because doctors are supposed to do their best and their utmost to keep a person alive, unless there is a DNI or DNR order signed by the patient. Okay, next. This is the last part of this reflection on how do we shift, how do we change our minds from the traditional way of thinking of death to thinking of it as our final graduation, as our coming home. Give what is left of me to children. If you need to cry, cry for your sisters and brothers walking beside you. Put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you with something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I have known and loved. And if you cannot live without me, then let me live on in your eyes, your mind, and your acts of kindness. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and letting go of children that need to be free. Love does not die. Bodies die. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. When all that is left of me is love, is your love for me, is the family's love for me, then give me away. And that's why that beautiful practice of donating, no? So either donating to a church, donating to a charity, in the name or in honor of a loved one. That is sharing or giving the love that we have to another. And part of the living will might also be if you feel called to practice organ donation. No? If after you graduate to fuller life, you would want to donate whatever body organs might enable someone else to live or to live better. Right? Then it's also put in the living will. We probably have heard of one of our alumna who passed on in the States maybe about 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And she had expressed that after she passes on, whatever was left of her physical body that might be of service to someone else, to please donate those body organs. And her friends said there were about 6 or 7 other people who benefited from that donation. So this is also what could be included in a living will. Now I told you for the other kind of, I think we can end this PowerPoint sharing now. Okay, I told you that the other kind of will, you know, where you want, how you want to divide your properties, etc., etc. You settle with your lawyer because they're really the ones who handle these things. But I have a friend, and she had her daughters studying with us. And long after her children were on their own, so they must have left us. Well, they were, at that time when she told me this, she was already in her past 80, approaching 90. And she told me, "Sister, I want to give you the good news. I'm the freest and the happiest of all people on earth. I have nothing to worry about," because she says, the other Sunday, we had a family meeting and we had our lawyer with us, and I don't want to wait until I am dead. You know? In the presence of the lawyer, I already subdivided everything that would be divided after I pass on, she says. So my children have all received what would go to them. And sister, I don't own a house anymore. Nakikitira ako. So a few months with this child, and then afterwards I move on to the other child. I'm going around from child to child. And she says, I don't own a car anymore. My children are very kind, and then they give me their driver and a car. Here, mommy, you can use this driver, etc. And sister, I receive an allowance. I really am not handling any of my money, any of my property anymore. It's not mine anymore. I have given them away to my children. All right? And so it's my children who give me a weekly allowance, and they're more than generous. No? So she says, that way I know they're not going to fight. How terrible, to fight over material wealth. So truly enough, she is the happiest. So pray and listen to God for whatever God might be telling you. No? Okay, I'd like to pause here. We still have time for the Melly. You want to
Yes, sister. There were
take
some questions.
over? Yes.
Yeah, there were some questions posted earlier. The first cluster has to do with souls. Um, are souls earthbound? Do they roam for 40 days? What is the significance of the 40 days?
Yeah, that's a belief, no? And actually, the the Hindus believe that a person who dies does not leave his or her physical body until 2 days after. That's why they will not bury a person until at least after 2 days. No? But about earthbound, I go back to that passage found in the Acts of the Apostles. It is in God that we live and move and have our being. That's a very, very important and powerful line. It is in God that we live and move and have our being. So the only space, if we believe God's word, the only space is God, is in God. So whether we're saying on earth, in heaven, all right, that's still in God. No? This idea of heaven above, earth below, etc., comes from the Jewish cosmology. They believe that there were layers to the universe. And you have God topmost. He's the king. He sits on the throne above. And then you have there a layer for the angels. You have another layer for the souls who go to heaven. It's like, don't misunderstand me, but what comes to my mind is it's like San Rival. There are layers, and so, but that, be aware that it comes from a notion or a mentality. But God is the only space there is. So when we say earthbound, and that's the reason why we pray for those who have gone ahead of us. Earthbound means cannot be released. Not that God is the one chaining that person or saying, "Wag ka muna pumasok sa langit," no? But the purification that is needed. No? And that's what purgatory is all about. And that's what prayers do. They cleanse us. All right? So that it's not God who withholds, it's we who have, in a sense, not settled. Some of my family members who are with us now will probably remember. Many, many years ago, one of our relatives was very sick, and the doctor told the family she may go anytime because it was a heart condition. And there was a time when she really became very, very ill, so that the family is very close to one another. They occupied the largest suite in a hospital. So it became like their headquarters. They were there, children, grandchildren, as much as possible. And true enough, one day, their mamita stopped breathing. So the doctors called the family and said, all right, what you would like to tell your mama, last goodbye, etc. And most of the children were calm and peaceful. They were talking to their mother, mama, etc. Do not worry about us, except one daughter. And she was crying, really crying very, very loudly. No, mama, mommy, please don't go, etc. The usual thing. I still need you, etc., etc. After a few moments, the mama came back. All right? Even if her fingernails had already turned gray, etc., she returned. And then when she was able to talk, she told her children, I went to this very, very beautiful place because she also loved flowers. She says, it was a garden. Some of the flowers I've never seen here on earth, but beautiful, and I'm so happy, so light, so bright. But she said, I heard you. She referred to the daughter who was crying and howling the loudest. I heard you, calling me back, and I pitied you, she says. So she said, I asked God, can I go back and can I just assure her and my family that all is well with me? She came back and she stayed on, I think, for about 2 weeks. And then she passed on. And then that time, nobody said anymore, Mama, do not go, etc., etc. On the contrary, they will say, Mama, pray for us, and remember us to Jesus, etc. It was a very different way of praying. Okay?
Sister, there's a question about spirits.
Yes, just a minute.
Okay,
There's
sorry.
a question. There's a question. I told my friends who organized this, tell our classmates a good background viewing would be if you go to YouTube, you search for Anita Murjani. She is an Indian lady who was declared clinically dead, and she shares very beautifully. And the reason, God gave her a choice to continue on and in heaven or to come back. And she chose to come back, and she tells you the reason. I won't deprive you of her story. Anita Murjani, Moorjani. She has several clips because she has a program of her own now. And the other one, much older, is Embraced by the Light. Betty Edie. E-A-D-I-E. Embraced by the Light. And there are others, and they tell us death is not that scary for the one who is being called by God. And I remember during the wake of Mig, one of his companions from the Philippine Airlines stood up to share, and she says, I died. I was declared clinically dead. And she says, it's not what you think it is. It's not frightening, she says. On the contrary, it's so peaceful. She was trying to assure the rest of the office mates there by the remains of me. Okay, Melly, what's the next question?
Question on spirits, sister. Do spirits evolve?
I think so. Spirits evolve because when we say we are created to the image and likeness of God, we can never say, okay, I am 100% now the image and likeness of God, because God is infinite. Yun na nga, walang hangganan, no? So we become more and more loving, more and more at the service of others. We are spirits, huh? So when you say, do spirits evolve, you're talking of us. I'm not referring to multo or mumu, no? You and I are spirits, so we are evolving. We are evolving. And when we pass on to the next level of life, part of our evolution is precisely like the risen body of Jesus, to be able to be with all members of the family at the same time. We don't have to make appointments. We don't have to say, oh, sige, ako ang next, ha? Ako naman, Mom, don't forget me. No. Simultaneously. All right? They can be with us. That's part of the evolution. You know, Amy there, Melly, has had her hand raised since
Okay.
10 minutes ago.
Aimee Benipayo, do you have a question? You can unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Aimee, do you have a question?
Yeah, mangangawit ka. Your hand has been raised for more than 15 minutes. Or maybe just wrong
Maybe
press.
by mistake. Yeah, maybe by mistake.
Okay, Melly, let's go.
A question from Gina. She
Okay.
asks, I wonder if after 21 centuries of this world, you can give us a sense of an answer to this question. Do you think there will be more good souls or good sheep who will be invited by God to heaven than bad souls or bad sheep who will be sent to hell? The world seems to be overshadowed more by the human being with all his faults and sinful tendencies than the spiritual being who exudes the goodness that Jesus preached.
Dear, our mother, who's a saint, when the church proclaims somebody a saint, it's the church's way of saying she found a path that leads to fuller life. So she can inspire you. She will not teach you erroneous doctrine. That's when a saint is canonized by the church. So Marie Eugenie, all right, is Saint Marie Eugenie. And she tells us education is to set free. To educate is to set free the goodness that is in every person. To set it free from the rock that imprisons it and bring it to the light so that it may blossom and shed its fragrance. To educate is to set free the goodness in every person. So for us in the Assumption, Marie Eugenie believes that every person is very, very good because created by God. So when we speak of the bad sheep, it's not God who created the bad. Nawalan ng landas, we say in Filipino. Lost their way. And I like the expression, probably some of your children or grandchildren have told you, Lola, Mami, hindi mo na gets. Hindi mo na gets. That's not what we're saying. That's not what the young think. No? Okay, hindi natin na gets. I like that expression in terms of sin. The original word in the language of Jesus, and Jesus did not speak Filipino, nor English, nor Spanish, Ilonggo. No. Jesus spoke Hebrew and Aramaic. The word that is translated as sin in English, in his language, meant to miss the mark. To miss the mark. What is that? if we're playing darts, no, or bow and arrow, okay, we want to hit the bullseye, yung pinaka-sentro, pinaka-gitna. But if we're not yet sharpshooters, right, we miss the mark and we hit the outer circles. So, when we miss the mark and we don't hit bullseye, all right, if we really are serious about learning how to shoot, we don't give up and say, okay, that's the end, no more, all right? We pick up our dart or our arrow and we aim again and we shoot. That's what it's all about. When we fail to understand, either because we have our own idea, then God in His mercy, and that's what grace is all about. No, grace continues to offer us. Okay, try this for size. You don't like the usual. The usual helps. Okay, what about this one? And people enter into our lives, and there are angels without wings. Many of our friends, all right, are God sent. So, many. What was?
Sister, there is a comment on DNR, and
Yes.
that not equating, it's not does not equate it with euthanasia. DNR is legal and ethical and not the same as euthanasia. Can you just comment on the
Yes, dear.
euthanasia?
Because the euthanasia is when a person says, I've been suffering so much, so please either give me something to drink or what. Euthanasia is mercy killing. The other name is mercy killing. All right. DNR is not euthanasia because the doctors themselves tell us the heart is beating or the lungs are pumping because of the machine. If we remove the machine, the person is no longer capable of breathing. So that's the DNR. Do not resuscitate. Do not introduce machines and even CPR. Or when I saw them do CPR to my father, I told myself, never again. No, it's not a nice experience. And those who have come back clinically dead, but who are allowed to come back, tell you of the pain. No? And on the contrary, you listen to Anita Murjani. She says, if you only knew what we are experiencing already with 1 foot beyond, all right, you will wish us safe flight, happy landing. You will not wish to pull us back to earth. No? Except as in the case of Betty Edie and Anita Murjani, the reason why both of them, and there are others, have chosen to come back is because they understood clearly. It was not God who says, okay, you go back, no, you proceed forward. They chose because they understood they still had a mission on earth. Okay, dear?
Sister, there are two related questions.
Yes.
When we pass on, do we reincarnate? And does our spiritual being take on another human life?
Dear, my answer to this is Jesus Christ, no? The resurrection of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ acquired a risen body. That's why he could go through closed doors, all right? He could intuit very, very often what the apostles or thinking of. Those were the higher spiritual gifts that were released and that developed. So that question, do we reincarnate? I actually don't know because I have not reached that level yet. All right, but if we say God, I'm at your disposal. God can give us another assignment, and God can tell us, all right, I assign you, go to this person and help that. You will be, my presence in the life of this person. I just want to greet my brother Binky. Binky, happy birthday. He's there, see? Louis is above you. Okay. He's the brother who comes after me.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Sister,
Okay.
there's a
So
question.
then,
There's one more question here. How can we support those who are grieving someone who took their own life?
that God is greater, remind them, God is greater than our conscience. And this is found in scriptures. This is not my quotation. In scriptures, there's a line that says in one of the letters of St. Paul, even when our consciences condemn us, God is greater. So, how do we accompany somebody who's grieving? We assure the person, God in His mercy loves even your friend or your relative who took his or her life. And God is still God. So we do not volunteer to take over God's position. We let God be God. So we remind the person that God's mercy is boundless. This tendency for us to judge, to put some people in hell, in purgatory, etc., that comes from our training, and we are invited to shift. If you hold on to that passage I gave you a while ago from the Acts of the Apostles, it is in God that we live and move and have our being. So, people who we tend to judge as having made a mistake and taken the wrong turn, well, just like in driving, isn't it? Sometimes we do not enter streets or one way, and then we have to find a way of getting out of that situation. And this is where prayers come in. So, why do we pray for those who have gone ahead? It's love, no? It's love that heals, love that saves, love that sets free. So when Mother Church and we offer prayers, it's the love. It's not how many masses, etc. One mass, but if you offer it with a lot of love, you don't have to multiply it by 30 times, no? The mass, one mass is infinite in value because it's Jesus offering Himself, right? So I would just remind that person of the mercy and compassion, and to say, God is taking care of your family member or your friend also who has passed on to fuller life.
Sister, earlier on there were questions on how we communicate with the departed.
Yes. Okay, so what is the question?
When
For
someone
me,
dies,
okay.
when someone dies and reaches their destination, can they still communicate with us?
Yes, they look for ways and means. No, love is the medium. If you want to ask, okay, what's the word that we use for our internet? if you have a router, okay, router. The router, love is the router that enables us to connect. So those who have gone ahead of us have passed on to a fuller way of love. No? So their energy, those who are scientifically inclined, their vibration is much faster and much more refined than ours. All right? And so they cannot come down. They cannot come down to us, but we can go up. We can take the lift. Okay, what is the lift? Whenever we choose to operate from love. When love, yung pag-ibig ba, hindi yung pagmamahal. When pag-ibig is our motivation to love without condition, without limitation, and without need, then it is easier for them. That, what I told you at the beginning, the way my brother Mig and I communicate, no? Or even now, like for example, pre-COVID times, when I would wait for a friend I was supposed to meet in the Glorieta area. For example, one day I would go to a record, what do you call this, a music bar, no? And then I would be looking at the what do you call this, at the discs, etc. And then all of a sudden, my eyes fall on an album that says Miguel something, a singer called Miguel something. Okay, so I tell Mig, okay, okay, I remember you're around, you know. And then afterwards, I walk around the shop and I see on the name tag of one of the salesmen, Mike. Okay, Mig, it's clear. I know you're around here. I believe you're with me. Okay, let your other friends also be assured of your presence. So, love. Operate from love. Do what you do because of love. And you will become more sensitive. And then ask your family member or departed who has gone on, no? Find a way of communicating with me. Like Sister Carol, she did it with her cell phone, all right? And there was a question earlier, does it mean that when her cell phone stopped ringing, she was not earthbound anymore? Oh, but the question, I don't know if it's still there. No, what it meant was that our project was successful. And when I explained to friends or sisters in community that it was Carol, we had talked about it, that was the way that she found. So one mission is accomplished. Not necessarily that everybody would believe, but to whom it may concern, then there's no more need for that kind of proof.
Sister, a related question. Is it helpful, healthy for us to have open communication with our departed loved ones? Or does it hinder them from crossing over?
If your prayer is of thanks and appreciation and affirmation for how they helped you, then that will also help them. But if it's, why did you leave me? And I'm so sad and so miserable, that's very heavy energy. That will not help, no? Once you shift your idea of what death is about, isn't it? Those who have graduated, we turn to them and we ask them, o sige, ikaw, tapos mo na to, no? So, how do you think I should handle this? For everyday things, isn't it? We ask them for help because we trust that they have graduated to a higher level and that they know better and they know more. Well, the same thing with our loved ones. No? We tell our loved ones, sige naman, you inspire me. But we don't give them instructions. We don't say, send somebody with 3 yellow roses And then I will know that the answer is yes. No, no, you just tell them, find a way, find a way of letting me know, all right, which is the more life-giving way. And without, your plan, you don't have to plan, because if you tell them find a way, they will look for a way if you're operating from love. But if you're operating from fear or anger, then you are incommunicable because you're on another level. Raise the vibration first. Hmm? I can see Marilyn, I can see Randy, Father Randy, thank you for joining us. Father Randy is a priest friend in the States, in Seattle. All right. Anybody else?
I think I've covered all the questions that were posted on chat. I don't know if there are any other questions that
Okay,
any
I,
other
I want to share with you because Cheryl sent me this. No, thank you for looking it up. For those who want, 1 John, the first letter of John, chapter 3, verse 20. 1 John 3:20. This is the passage that says, "For whenever our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart, and He knows everything." Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for that. I just want to assure Mitch, of course I remember you. How can I forget you? So these are friends, all right? Mitch, I remember you very, very well. And I pray for you as a frontliner. Okay, anyone else?
So it's almost noon. We'll call on Marfina.
Sister Fidelis, the
Yes.
time this morning was very well spent. There were so many insights you gave us. Who am I? Why am I here? How shall I get to my destination? And the answer is by learning more and more how to love as Jesus loves me. So beautiful. So thank you so much, Sister Fidelis, our beloved Amce. And I would also like to thank, on behalf of Class 63 and College 67, the technical team that has been helping us. They made sure that we would give everybody a good presentation. Imagine, Amce, you are all the way in Iloilo. We had audio difficulties just before we were going to start. But see how beautiful it became. Thank you. So thank you, the team headed by Meli Diaz, Sasa Araneta, Zelda Santos, Marijo Severino, and Bianca Gingona. Thank you so much. And of
Bianca is
course,
Cojuangco.
yes.
Bianca is Mrs. Cojuangco. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sasa, Bianca Cojuangco.
Yes. Mrs.
Sorry,
Cojuangco.
okay.
Mrs. Cojuangco. Yes.
Bianca Gingona Cojuangco. Sorry, Bianca. Yeah, she was up this morning making sure that Amce's audio would be very clear. Thank you, Bianca. So I'd also like to thank, in behalf of our Class 63 and 67, it was so good that we decided to open it up to more people who would be interested. And I would like to thank all of you who joined us, the Assumption community, the Friends of the Assumption, who really made time to be here. And thank you so much. Thank you, Amce. Thank you, dear Lord. Thank you.
Our closing prayer song winds up very, very beautifully and synthesizes what we talked about. No? I started in the morning by sharing with you what little Martha understood, even at age 6 or 7, when she memorized the sentence I gave her. It is all in my mind, and it is all in your mind. No? And when we went back to what Jesus tells us, I am with you always. I have called you by name and you are mine, and I'm not going to change my mind about that. And so rightfully so, all is well. Even when we are tempted to think, so and so, they're not doing their duty, look at the suffering around us, etc., etc. Over and beyond that, Jesus assures us, all is well, because I am doing something new. Just trust me. And so our closing prayer song, Love Changes Everything.
Love changes everything. Hands and faces, earth and sky. Love changes everything. How you live and how you die. Love can make the summer fly, or a night seem like a lifetime. Yes, love changes everything. Now I tremble at your name. Nothing in the world will ever be the same. Love changes everything. Days are longer, words mean more.
Love changes everything. Pain is deeper than before.
Love will turn your world around, and that world will last forever.
Yes, love changes everything, brings you glory, brings you shame. Nothing in the world will ever be the shaping years. Love bursts in and suddenly all our wisdom disappears. Love makes fools of everyone. All the rules we make are broken.
Yes, love changes everyone.